Yo, what's up guys? It's gonna be another quick tip video, and today I'm gonna be talking about some advanced strategy, more specifically towards the opening strategy. So if you're a bit more of a beginner player, then you don't have to worry too much about having a thought process like this, although it could be interesting to listen to. And if you're an advanced player, then definitely make sure you're thinking like this, because you're gonna get an advantage over your opponent if he's not doing the same thing. So when it comes to early game strategy, it's all about maximizing your bonuses or maximizing the element of surprise. Those are the only two things that let you get an advantage in the early game. For example, no matter what civ I try to pick, let's say a simple example for now, I've got the Magyars. If I can find them, there we go. I've got the Magyars. So if I'm playing as the Magyars, there's only two ways to gain an advantage. Either I use the bonuses that I have present to get a strong early game strategy, or because I know my opponent will expect me to do that, I can do something different and use the element of surprise to gain an advantage. So the best strategy with Magyars is very obvious. Again, this is a very obvious civ. The best strategy is definitely the Scout Rush. The second best strategy might be the 2 Militia Rush or the Men at Arm Rush, because they get a bit of extra attack on the Militia, but by far the best strategy is the Scout Rush, because A, Scout Rush is a good opening, and B, with the discount you get on the scouts and the free forging, you're getting two bonuses directly working towards the Scout Rush, making it a lot stronger than the generic civ going scouts. If I'm going scouts, my opponent going scouts, and he's got a generic civ, I'm going to pretty much rinse him. The problem with going scouts as Magyars is that it's super predictable, and so if I go scouts, a strong high-level opponent won't be going scouts with the generic civ. He might just play to his civ strengths. So for example, if he's playing as Byzantines, he might just wall up, make a couple spears, and all of a sudden my Scout Rush, that was supposed to be very strong, is now finding no damage, and my opponent might have an advantage because he played smart and he used a counter strategy. So as you can see, by going for the stronger strategy, I could have the advantage, or I could be very predictable and my opponent can gain the advantage if they work around the strategy. So that's why I say that the second way to use Magyars is by using the element of surprise. If I know that the Scout Rush is the obvious strategy and my opponent is going to be well prepared for it, then I will go for the second best strategy, which is probably something to do with some Militia or some Men at Arms. And that will be the strategy I use to try to catch him off guard and to throw off his plan to counter scouts. Of course, the ideal thing to do is to obviously scout your opponent, make sure you know what they're doing, make sure that you know what their strategy is. However, this isn't always possible because we're upping really fast in the next age these days. You don't always have the time to scout your opponent, and you don't always have the time to see exactly what they're opening with. So if you're playing as the Magyars and you want to surprise your opponents, if you know he hasn't scouted you yet, you can play a less strong strategy to catch him off guard and to throw him off. However, the problem with always doing the less good strategy, or like the surprise factor, is that if you get known for doing the surprise factor, your opponent would just put more emphasis on scouting, and he's gonna, catch out your surprise strategies a little too early. And because it's not the best strategy for the civilization, it's gonna be relatively easy to stop if your opponent does scout it. So I'll give you guys another example just so you really understand what I'm talking about. Let's say I am playing as another civilization, one that's maybe a little bit more flexible yet still has some strengths. So let's say I'm playing as the Burmese or the Bulgarians. Both are good examples. So for Burmese and Bulgarians, their best strategy using their bonuses is going to be the Men at Arms, because Burmese get an extra +1 attack. It could also be the 2 Militia Rush as well. And same with Bulgarians. It's either 2 Militia Rush that turns into 2 Men at Arms, or you take an extra 10 gold and you go for the 3 Men at Arms, which is also still a really good strat. For both of these two civs, it's the best way to open. However, the counter strategy to Men at Arms is your opponent going one range archers. So if I'm playing, Burmese or Bulgarians, and I want to go for the Men at Arms and my opponent goes for the one range archers, I'm probably going to fall behind. Even though my Men at Arms are really strong, they're going to do a lot of damage to his vills. He'll small wall his vills, get some archers out, and my Men at Arms will be useless. And so my really strong strategy, once again, does nothing. So in these cases, with Bulgarians and Burmese, what you might want to do is open scouts and then play scouts into skirms, which is a really good strategy into someone opening just archers, because your scouts gets full control of the map. If he moves out with 2 archers, you can chase him. And then if he moves out with archers later, you can also mix in skirms to let you attack or defend his archers, and he's going to be in a pretty tough position. And again, scouts with Bulgarians and Burmese is not a bad strategy. It's just not their best. So in this situation, again, you have the option to make their best strategy and have all your bonuses working towards that one strat, or you can choose a secondary strategy that's still decent but not their best, and use the element of surprise to have your strat not get counted by your opponent, and so you don't lose out on the opening just for free because your opponent read your very predictable play. Hopefully this makes any sense, and hopefully you guys understood what I'm talking about. But that's going to be it for this video. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Love to help you guys out further.